I need to understand this nasty fight I had with the wife last night. What is it we do in the red pill? We swap notes. Now, I'm sure people have heard all kinds of different stories about us, but I'm here to give you a glimpse inside the locker room. Here, we're going to discuss the field reports that happened a few years back. Brand new guys who are trying to learn the strategies that we talk about. Who am I? I used to be one of these brand new guys. I, like you, was pretty good at women and relationships, but I wasn't great at it. Hard times hit, things got tough, and it turns out there's nowhere for a man to go nowadays that actually wants him to succeed, to thrive, to get better at what he does and improve his lot in life. So, like most guys, I took it upon myself, found a bunch of guys in the same boat as me, and together we built a set of working strategies based on the experience of hundreds of thousands of men, just like us. Men swapping notes, iron sharpening iron. Welcome to the locker room. I'm very new to this. I'm only in my second week of a process that I'm expecting is going to take 18 to 20 months. As such, I'm still working my way through the introductory materials and fully acknowledge I'm not yet equipped to really properly deal with the difficult situations in a new way. I need to understand this nasty fight I had with the wife last night, and I have not figured it out yet. Last night, my wife and I were getting ready to watch some TV before bed. I was lying on the bed, working on my phone, and figuring out some scheduling issues for the day. She was putting away laundry and asked me to get her some water. I told her I was lying down. I was trying to set a tiny little boundary. She seemed surprised by that response and continued with her laundry, and after about 1 minute went down and got her own water. When she came back, she was obviously angry that I hadn't jumped when she snapped her fingers. Stony faced, stomping angry, energy to her walk, etc. After a couple minutes, she confronts me. I guess when you said you were lying down, that was really a no, or did you not hear me? I told her I heard her, but that I just hadn't gotten up yet. I was working on something. She thought I sounded angry, which I wasn't, and stomped off. When she came back, we fought. I tried to defuse the situation by inviting her to cuddle with me and watch our show, but she rejected it because she just didn't feel good anymore. The fight began in earnest after that when she tried to accuse me of jumping straight to being pissed off, even though I wasn't. I was actually quite calm at the time. All I was doing was resisting it. Some pointless back and forth about the stupid water. My old tendencies reared up and I tried to comfort her. I love you, which she threw back in my face. No, you don't. You don't even care that I'm crying. Well, you cry at the drop of a hat, I said, which really got her angry. And yeah. I wasn't trying to hurt her when I said she cries at the drop of a hat. She really is an everyday crier and has been our whole relationship. I said it because I really don't know how to react in this moment. And the fight segued in some weird crap where she tried to get me to admit I don't think she works hard enough, which she doesn't. I guess she recognized that, but I didn't want to go there. That felt like a nuke-type response to the situation, and at that point, I was looking to finish this so I can go and do what I wanted to do. Anyway, her anger was waning by the point and shifting, as it always does, into her feeling depressed, helpless, useless, and like a failure. She wished she had never been born. She was stressed about how crappy she was going to look after crying so much, how tired she was going to be since the flight went past her bedtime. After about an hour of all this, she finally calmed down enough that we could reconnect somewhat, and she went to bed. She texted me. I'm sorry I screwed up everything again, like always. And I'm sorry I didn't work as hard as you do, and that I cry all the time. I'll try to fix it. All this because I didn't get some stupid water. It ruined both of our evenings. Can I expect this kind of behavior from her every time I try to display at least the smallest bit of spine? Do you think a different reaction from me would have steered the fight in a better direction, or should I have just gotten her the water? I'm confident that the fight wouldn't have happened if I had. Also, very anxious because I haven't heard from her yet today. I'm worrying about her mood because she hasn't sent me any texts. I do recognize that this is my codependent validation-seeking behavior, so I'm telling these feelings to saw it off. It's still stress, though, which I don't need. A couple terms before we get started here. Beta tendencies. This one's a not uncommon phrase that a lot of guys use when they describe codependent behavior, or the kind of thing that really doesn't help and escalates situations. In this case, the idea of The girl wanting a cup of water, but at the same time harboring all these resentments for inadequacies and lack of direction. The guy has a beta tendency to keep things on an even keel, will avoid all those things, and just get the cup of water. The idea is then you don't have any anger in the situation, regardless of if it leaves something to fester underneath or not. It's really not healthy. I said it calmly. This one, it's not so much terminology, but it's a phrase I hear so much, it's almost a meme. You can always tell from some guy's field report when he tells you that he stayed calm or stoic and said something calmly or stoically, that he's lying. He's lying to himself and he's trying to lie to you. He absolutely was not calm. He absolutely was not stoic. And even if he didn't raise his voice, I guarantee you through his body language, his facial expressions, and his tonality, nothing about that seemed calm or stoic. It's something for guys to think about, because I see it in more than just being calm. I see it in guys when they talk about being alpha or any kind of bravado statements. They're this weird, self-deceptive pep talk. And I think a lot of guys would be a lot further along, a lot sooner if they learned to address these things and recognize when they happen. Validation seeking. Validation seeking behavior is pretty straightforward. If you want the other person to respect you or to validate the way you think about something, you do certain activities, usually as a covert contract, expecting them to reciprocate with said validation. Now, there's two different ways this can happen. There's female to male type of validation seeking, and there's male to female validation seeking. Now, the problem with the male to female validation seeking is that it puts ownership, judgment, and authority onto the woman in a sexual dynamic. Now, if you want to think of unattractive behaviors, there isn't many that are much worse than this. Women don't like being in charge and responsible for these kind of things because it puts the possibility of failure into them, and that's an anxiety-creating situation. Now, not anxiety as a good way, in the way sexual desire would be, but anxiety in a bad way, as in that DNA-infused need that women have to always be considered a good person within the community, because ostracization was a death sentence. The advice for this guy? Well, not so much for him, but it is for everybody. This was the post that got one of our more prolific Married Red Pill posters, Jack Ten of Hearts. I'm sure anybody who's been around for a while will probably recognize it. But the idea of his three-pronged attempt for a man to get frame. The first step is to realize that her scoreboard is always going to have you losing. So the instant that her impression matters to you means you're already ceding control over your own freedoms here. The guy did multiple examples of that, and he really shouldn't have. Secondly, you make your own scoreboard, and this is where a lot of guys go through their anger phase, where they start realizing, and he kind of got there at the end, where she doesn't do enough, she knows she doesn't do enough. You're not holding her to any standard, though, so there really is no place for that inadequacy to manifest, except through a girl's emotional state. Now, like we just said before, girls don't like the idea of shouldering responsibility within a relationship because that puts the possibility of failure of a relationship onto their shoulders, which they avoid at all costs. So what happens then is you get these feelings of inadequacy, the lack of leadership and direction by her man, and it manifests as it somehow being his fault. And that's what starts all these little fights. So by him actually avoiding conflict, he's creating a situation in which more conflict is more likely to happen in a future state. So what's in this for you? The straightforward answer is it doesn't matter how alpha you are. I don't like that bravado-laden, just be more alpha bro attitude that so many guys who haven't read anything seem to think solves problems. That's guys trying to impress other guys by talking tough. That's not what fixes relationships. In this case, it's the guy who's walking on eggshells around his girl. He lets her have the frame, and since she has the frame, she constantly throws out these little tests, hoping that he fails one. Go get me a glass of water's got to be the most simple one. If you're as a guy can't say no when your girl asks you for one of these favors, and it's not as if she's busy with something, she's sitting closer to the water, she's folding laundry, her legs still work, she's perfectly able to get it, but she wants to subconsciously do a small test to exert control. So by just saying no, you're obviously going to get an escalation. Same as you would with anything. If you're not consistent with your boundaries, somebody is going to be very angry because you're acting off script with their little minor narcissistic fantasy. You're the guy that gets water. Eventually what happens though is people start to learn that there's just certain things that you don't ask of this person. He's going to do what he's going to do. But if you've been codependent or validation seeking for any length of time, you're going to have to go through a bit of a pit of despair where you're constantly getting flack for asserting your boundaries. That's just par for the course. An alternative for this is a guy who has frame and goes through that three-pronged approach. First off, throwing away the girl's scoreboard. All these things that she says, all these assumptions about him, they're all wrong, and you need to totally ignore it. It's not real. You know it's not real. By arguing it, you tell her that you think it's real. Instead, these are where tools like Agree and Amplify, Amuse Mastery, and Fogging come in handy. You want to dismiss these without tapping into that your emotions are wrong instinct that just causes them to escalate. It's a very good nuance, and a lot of people who talk about emotional intelligence, what they're really talking about is the social ability to navigate these things while allowing the other person's emotional state to follow your lead. At the same time, when these fights start happening, you nip it in the butt right away. He obviously knows it's not about the water. He knows it's not about him being petulant. It's about her thinking she doesn't do enough and her over emotional state. So instead of dancing around these alternative issues, deal with the thing head on. Yeah, women speak in womenese. It's never about the thing. It always dances around the subject because they're processing it. As a man, you need to speak Manglish. Go up direct. If she feels inadequate about the things she does in the house, well, lay out expectations. A good woman in this household does this, this, and this. Then the other person eventually achieves or refuses to achieve those things. But at that point, everything's out in the open, everything's honest, and you won't have any more stupid fights about who gets the water. So on that note, I'll leave you guys to it. Enjoy this one, and I'll catch you on the next time. Cheers.